We begin today, chapter 22. Chapter 22 in one word is Hester, concealment. What do we learn about? God creates the world through the word of speech. Speech, its purpose is to reveal. At the same time, speech is something that becomes separate from the speaker. As I'm speaking right now, the words leave me, and that's why make sure your words are always kind, because when they leave you, you can't take them back. They become separate from us. And that's why they can sometimes have their own, become their own reality, far from what a person meant it to be. That's a digression. The point is that it's something separate, and therefore that would connote that there is something separate. In other words, God created the world. Before he created the world, there was only him. Now there's creatures, there's things that he created. And that is incorrect. Hashem Echad, one God, doesn't mean that there's no idolatrous God, another God with him that's competing, means is the only one reality, and that is God. So after he creates the world, there's only but him. Then how do we understand speech? So till now we explained, well, for the metaphor of speech, we're only talking about God wanting to reveal himself, and that's what speech does. He wants to reveal himself to creation. But the fact that the word leaves and becomes a separate entity, we can't say that by God, because everything is united in one with him. So now the Alter Rebbe takes this metaphor and says, well, the fact that we employ human language in reference to God, human speech, and that human speech there is a, shall we say, separateness, that the word leaves the individual, even though by God we said it doesn't. Well, we still can employ this idea in respect to God in reference to the various creations. And this is by the fact that God creates through the contraction of his divine light, of the density and the powerful light. There's a powerful contraction that now, and actually speech is also that way. Think about it. You have an idea in your head. It's very powerful, and you have to contract it in order that you could bring it to someone who doesn't have the same light in their head as you do of the idea, and you want to bring it down to them, you have to contract it. Well, that's what God does. He contracts and veils it. So powerful that concealment, it's a concealment on his supernal countenance. So much so that he's able to create impure things, unclean things, what we call klipa. Klipa is a shell that covers over on the supernal countenance of God. And also we call it siter acher, the other side, meaning that through this process of contraction of the divine light in the word of God, that he is now animating these creations, creating things that are of klipa, siter acher, the other side, that their divine existence is a concealment of the holiness and the countenance of God. And that's what it means. Klipa means a shell covering over the divine light. Other side meaning it's not coming from the countenance of God. It's not coming from the inner aspect of his divine will. It is, well, by metaphor, the Alter Rebbe says, it's coming as a human being. We are of two wills. We have an inner will and an outer will. The inner will is when I really want this thing. Why? Just because it is a part of me, or it's so important to me. By way of metaphor, and this is my metaphor, I don't know if it's mine, but the Alter Rebbe doesn't give this metaphor. A mother, when she gives her children food, indeed what she's giving is love in the form of food. And she looks the child in the eye and gives it very kindly and lovingly, with great devotion, because this is an end in itself, the act of giving, because it's the act of love. That's an inner will. But then we have an outer will. An outer will is a means to an end. And that is when you have an enemy that you have to gift them something for whatever reason, political reason, business reason, irrelevant. But you have to give them. You don't look them in the eye and you give it over your shoulder. You don't give it directly to them. You don't give it in a loving way. It's only a means to an end for a political, economic reason, whatever. And the Alter added that part just to make it clearer for us. So to on high, there's God, as he gives from his countenance, from his inner will, true desire. That's from his holiness, from those who are close to him. Those that, like we're doing right now, learning Torah, we're getting vitality. Where are we getting the vitality? From his inner will, because that's what he really wants. He wants what we're doing right now. And therefore the connection is made from his divine countenance, from his inner will, the vitality that he imbues us with and bestows upon us. However, Sitra Acher gets from unholiness, doesn't get it direct. It's actually something that God hates. So if it's doing something, that doesn't give God pleasure, yet he gives life. Why would he give life? It's a means to an end. Here, the Alter Rebbe doesn't explain this, but one simple reason is because otherwise, if you only got life when you did good, and when you did something wrong, kind of got like a slap on the hand, right, from God, well, you wouldn't have much freedom of choice. So therefore, God gives unwillingly. He throws it over his shoulder, as it were, figuratively speaking. And it's not coming from his inner will, but an outer will. It's a means to an end. Ultimately, it's with the hope that we will do tshuva, that we will come around and change our ways. But this is what it means, other gods. Other gods means that they arrive from Achoraim, from the other side. That's the force of divine energy that's coming from the outer will of God, not giving it because that's his true inner delight and what he truly wants. And that's how, that's it. In the middle of a thought, but we can see where we're going with that, how in creation there can be from God's word that is animating, that is a means to an end, that is disconnected from him. From the created being's perception and, reality in the moment. But more on that to come, God willing. But what we learned here importantly is the concept of inner and outer will. Stanley, Shalom, and Padma from, not certain, but good morning. Sigalit. Thank you for joining. Susan, good morning. Where's everybody from this morning? AJ, shalom. Ashley, good morning. Ahmad, shalom. Brendan. So Brendan's asking, is God's anger a metaphor? Yes and no. It's not like our anger that we get angry because, you hurt my feelings. But is God's love a metaphor? Yes and no. Is it a metaphor like the way we understand it as humans? Then it is a metaphor because God's love is far and above beyond what human love is. And God, when he really wants something, he wants it infinitely. When he doesn't want something, he doesn't want it infinitely. He loves it infinitely and hates it infinitely. So he loves a mitzvah infinitely and he hates a sin infinitely. That doesn't mean he hates the sinner. He hates the sin infinitely. So hating and anger have a relationship. If you do something that is sinful and therefore hateful, God also therefore would be angered because he's pained at the person doing something wrong. Anger here is not retribution. I'm going to get you back because you didn't do what I want. But it is ultimately, just as we explained, that it is, excuse me a moment. It is ultimately like a parent sometimes shows anger to a child, and rightfully so, but shows it. Why? Because it's necessary sometimes to straighten out the child that they should follow the right path, that you need to show them anger. Should you be angered because, you didn't listen to me? No, not on that emotive level. But you should show the anger. Now, when you're completely righteous and you're completely aligned with the divine, like Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was angry at the Jewish people, he was only angry at their misdeed. Not because, you didn't listen to me, you hurt my feelings, you did something against me. You did something against the divine. And that is hateful. That brings, therefore, as an expression of anger in order to stop that evil doing. I hope that explained it. So, is it a metaphor? Yes and no. It depends what you mean by anger and what the understanding of it. But ultimately, it's the true sense of anger, not the way we humans kind of are misguided in our anger. Linda from Nebraska, Boker Tov, and Donna from New Jersey, thank you for joining. Tim from Texas, Boker Tov. Rick from the Chicago area, good morning. Darren. Darren says, it's quite something to think that my individual personality is complex construct, an illusion of sorts. An illusion of sorts that we are independent of God. That's the illusion. Not that I don't have unique, qualities, personality, and so on. But what is that? A part of God, not separate from God. And that's where we're going with all of this, is God creates this reality in order that we should come to it on our own. It's something that we mentioned previously. That's our avodah. That's our divine service. Judah, welcome. Clem from Brisbane. Just finished a Farbringen in the Chabad house in Brisbane for Yud Shvat. Beautiful. Marcelo. Okay, thank you. Migs from the Philippines. Yeah, is outer will something like a father's testing his son? Yeah, in a sense, yeah, because you're doing it in order that it's a means to an end. That's the concept. And Roxana from Miami, Robert. Made in God's image, absolutely. And on Instagram, did I miss some people? Adrian, hello. Nathan. All right. Hani from England. Ronnie from Italy, or Italian Jew at least. Thank you. All right, folks. Tonight is Yud Shvat. Yud Shvat is this 10th day of the month of Shvat. It is the day that our dear Rebbe became Rebbe 70 years ago, when the previous Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, passed away. It's a very auspicious and important day. We've been making many preparations. I'm sure many of you have. Importantly, you should be part of a Fabrengen tonight, tomorrow, Thursday, Shabbos, whatever. And in order to connect all the dots for ourselves, because the Alter Rebbe's teachings, the first Chabad Rebbe, is brought to life in our generation by our dear Rebbe, who even after Gimel Tammuz is still the seventh leader of Chabad and the leader of our generation. So it's an important time to get connected. Iskashrus. Perhaps we'll have a little more on that tomorrow. For sure we will. Reminder that you can get my 1-minute broadcast on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on my Facebook, Tanya Rabbi. If you look in those places, you'll find it. That way we can get a synopsis of the day's teachings in 1 minute. All right, folks. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you for Chabad Tzich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have a wonderful day and good preparations for Yud Shvat.